Hello, and welcome to Data Planet, the show where we talk with industry leaders about the triumphs and challenges of growing a business and the role data plays along the way. I'm Emma Davis, and today's guest is Ankit Malhotra, head of channel partnerships at OneMetric. Ankit, how are you doing?
Doing well, Emma. Thank you so much for having me on this show. How are you? How's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Um, so, to kick things off, I just want to ask OneMetric, who are your customers and what value do you provide to them?
Uh, Great question. To start with, of course, we
Mhm.
are a revenue enablement company where we help companies optimize their revenue operations, revenue teams, and revenue stack, right? We integrate all these three, right, and help them, throughout their entire bow tie funnel, right, which includes anywhere from, identifying a lead
Mhm.
to actually bringing it into the system, nurturing it into qualified leads, handing it over to the sales, where they, nurture them further, close, bring revenue in, and then hand it over to the customer success team, which, basically then onboard and upsell and cross sell. So we help them optimize this entire customer journey, right?
Okay, awesome. And so does that involve integrating multiple tools, or are you really focused on like HubSpot as a CRM and the multiple tools, the multiple functions that can have in that process?
Yeah. So what we do is basically we understand what their revenue teams are doing, right? What their
Mhm.
processes are, right? How their tech stack looks like, right? So the sales team would use their own tools, right? The marketing team would use their own tools, right? And same with the customer success, right? They might use probably the calling tools, right? Or
Mhm.
they might send out newsletters. So we integrate all of these tools with HubSpot at the center, right? So
Mhm.
all of these tools then talk to HubSpot, wherein all of the data comes in. The people, the stakeholders working on HubSpot, which will be all these three teams, will have data in one place, right? So HubSpot acts as, of course, the single source of truth.
Nice. And so essentially, you don't have a CMO looking at one reality and the CRO looking at a totally different reality because they're looking at different data sets or different systems. It's all integrated into one metric, would you say, into one place?
True. Yes, and that's what we're doing, right? Like helping companies achieve that one metric, which is growth, right? And with HubSpot at the center, the sales heads, right? The director of sales, the VP of sales, the CMO, the VP of customer success, all of that, all of them can see the data that are relevant to their team, as well as the data, the kind of leads that are being brought to them by the other teams, right? Or
Mhm.
how are they being nurtured, right, based on those intent signals, right, that their team is sending to other teams, so to say.
Nice. And so, what does it usually sound like when a new customer reaches or a new prospect reaches out to you? Do they have an acute problem that they're looking to solve? Are they preparing for a new phase of growth and they feel like they need to get things in order? Like, what does a beginning conversation with a customer sound like?
Yeah, so there are both these kinds of customers, right? One is, of course, they know the problem, right? They know the problem. They are, of course, as you said, they are looking at the next phase of growth, right? They have gotten some kind of funding, or they have probably probably gotten listed, right? uh,
Mhm.
or they have some influx, right? And then they're looking to scale their teams up, right? All these three teams, right? That is one set of customers, right? But then there are customers, and this is something that excites us the most, where they don't even know what the problem is, right? They
Mhm.
just know that they want to work towards growth, right? But
Mhm.
how do they do it, right? What are the problems, right? Where are their teams actually not able to fix the gaps, right? And that is where we actually help them, right? We help them map the entire process out as it currently lies, and then, of course, give them a roadmap of how the process would look like or should look like a year from now, right? Or probably a year and a half or 2 years from now, right? So that we are working towards an ideal goal, right? And
Yeah.
that is how we actually optimize their processes to do that, right? The handoff processes, the lead generation processes, right? The closure processes, right? Any playbooks that need to come into the into the play over there,
Mhm.
right? Or any signals, right? Or any lead qualification criteria, right? So we help them basically navigate their entire customer journey, right? From lead to upsell and cross sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, with HubSpot at its center, but we help them with those processes, right? We help them optimize those processes.
Awesome. And so I imagine that looks really different from company to company, but do you have any sort of go-to rules of thumb? Like you always start with the final revenue because that's the actual transacted value and you work your way backwards, or do you have any go-tos along the way?
Definitely. See, revenue is, of course, like the base of everything that we're doing, right? To
Mhm.
generate maximum revenue, right? Now, how do we look at it is that, see, at the end of the day, there are only three teams that are generating that revenue, right? And I've been saying that a lot. So, it should not turn into a cliche, but at the
Mhm.
end of the day, it's just those three teams, right? We need to see, okay, hey, what is the number of people in that team, right? What is the budget, right? What is the North Star metric that each team is currently working towards, right? So,
Mhm.
for example, the marketing team would be working towards getting the most number of qualified leads, right? So we work towards what does qualification mean for you, right?
Mhm.
How do you qualify, right? What are your sources of generating those leads, right? How do we actually optimize for that? How do we understand that, hey, the kind of leads that you are calling qualified, is it the same for the sales as well, right? Do the sales also consider them as a marketing qualified lead? Are they able to close that or not, right? So we
Mhm.
actually work with them to understand how they are currently working, right? We understand what their North Star metrics are, and we also understand how the inter-team collaboration works, right? So based on these three things, that is where that gives us the basic fundamentals, right, or foundations of building that entire process.
Nice. And so from my perspective, um, working in the paid media side, the
Yeah,
marketing, element of that, I'm super interested in, but I love the way you talk about all of that being one integrated system because we do run into issues with our clients where, the marketing signals look great, but the sales team is complaining about lead quality or, the marketing signals, everything seems kind of normal, but the sales team is super excited because suddenly they're getting all these and it's like what so usually it's a process issue, right? It's usually there's some signal that isn't being translated from one team to the next or something that isn't being entered into a field or and a lot of that has to do I think with buy-in, with there being clarity on for the different stakeholders involved in the process itself, not necessarily stakeholders in the relationship with OneMetric,
yeah,
or in running the company. For those stakeholders, why would they be motivated to, you know, change up their process? If, especially salespeople, I think, tend to have a like, I mean, I do my thing and I close deals. That's what I'm paid for, not to fill out this form or, update those fields or whatever. So, how much of your job is also trying to coach the individuals involved and express the added benefit to them of, being part of this system?
yeah. No, that's a really great question, right? And it all boils down to change management, right? Of course, change management is you know really, really tough, right? We know it because we do it day in, day out, right?
Yeah.
Now, how do we actually approach this is that, hey, this was your target, right? A lot of people would achieve that target. A lot of people would have also overshoot that target, but we want to see the entire sales team, right, to achieve that target and much more, right? Why were your targets probably capped at $1 million, right? Why could we not do, say, $2 million per rep in a quarter, right?
Mhm.
That is where we actually come in and we say that, hey, were are playbooks being followed, right, for everybody, right? Are they following the same playbook, right? Are they able to give those signals automatically, right, without even the marketing team asking for it, right? What
Mhm.
are the gaps, right? The major gaps are that, hey, I don't want to enter all of this data, right? So that is where our expertise in automating all of that comes into play, right? So a lot of times what happens is that they probably say marketing has generated 100 good quality leads, right?
Mhm.
But the sales team only has, say, 5 people, right? So each one gets 20 leads, right, on an
Mhm.
average. What happens is they are working on 10 leads, right, that they think are really high value, right? They are going to close, they are really qualified, they have the budget, but then five of them, drop off, right? Now, out of those 10 that they were working on, five, fall off, right? Or they drop off. And then they haven't even, they haven't even touched base with the other 10, right? Out of the 20 that they were given, right? So how do you
Right.
keep track of that, right? How do you actually understand that, hey, they might have said that they have budget, but a lot of signals told you that they're not going to move, right?
Yeah.
Quickly, right? Probably over a call, right? Somebody internally said that, hey, we are probably looking at the next year as our target, right, to implement this, right? Or for example, they, somebody internally said that, uh, probably they were not even the decision maker, right? The decision maker is two levels high, right? Two
Mhm.
levels up, right? And they are not even able to reach them, right? The problem lies with a particular person, right? They want to implement your service, but they are not able to reach the decision maker, right? So we actually find those signals, right? We find that data within the data, right?
Mhm.
Reading between the lines, right? We help them read between the lines through
Mhm.
our, optimizing their entire CRM, understanding what their ICP looks like, what their target persona looks like. Even in fact, now that AI has come in so rampantly, right? And it is there everywhere, right? We
Yeah.
utilize HubSpot's AI and we are doing it for everybody, right? We are actually trying to find those signals for them, right? Even if it's, say, a foot in the door where they just understand that, hey, this is what the summary of my engagement with this person looks like, right?
Mhm.
That is where we integrated for them, and that is where they realize that, yes, we want this, right? At the end of
Yeah.
the day. So
Yeah.
that's how we help them do it.
Nice. Nice. And so for you guys, what does your ideal customer look like? Do you have any particular conversations you have with folks where you're like, ah, this is someone I know I could hit the ground running with them? What are some green flags for you that someone would be a good fit for One Metric?
I mean, yeah, of course, there are a lot of times when we see that, hey, this is something that we can help, this is a customer that we can help, right? And that comes from both, the size of the customer as well as
Mhm.
the kind of problems that they're facing, right? Of course, we also have narrowed down certain industries, right? But then when it comes to revenue processes, it majorly the flow looks same. It's just how you're actually approaching that flow differs. But when it
Mhm.
comes to a mid-market company, right, mid-market, and somebody that's leaning towards enterprise, those are our ideal customers, right? And those that have been seeing, right, again and again, leads drop off, right? Visibility being an issue, like, right,
Mhm.
clarity being an issue, that, hey, all of that data is there, but we are not able to make sense of that data, right? We are not able to find out the relevant insights at the right time, right? Now,
Mhm.
that is where we hear the leadership say, hey, I don't even know how many leads were generated, right? And how many were actually closed, right? Now
Yeah.
that is what is music to our ears, right? That is where we come in and we are like, hey, we need to help you get, make sense of your data, right? Get your data in the right place. So these are certain use cases that we have seen. uh,
Nice. And how do you find those customers? Are you is it mostly through referrals and word of mouth? What channels does One Metric use to grow?
so yeah, so we have multiple sources, right? I mean, we are helping customers do that, so we would also need to have those those lead generation sources in place.
Yeah.
So we have, we are doing email marketing, right? We are doing
Mhm.
outbound, right? We are doing your cold outreach, right? Like bulk emailing, right? So those are some um major sources. But then of course we have paid marketing, right? Wherein leads are coming directly to the website, right, through our paid campaigns on LinkedIn, right? Then
Mhm.
we have invested a lot in SEO and now AEO, right?
Mhm.
We are searchable. In fact, I was just seeing our contact list, and 4 out of the last 7 customers came directly from ChatGPT. Right now,
Wow.
that says a lot, right? Like, I mean, I'm of course going to go back to our marketing team. I'm going to tell them, right, that you're doing something right, right?
Yeah.
Because now ChatGPT is, of course, another source of leads, right? And it is extremely high, high value leads, high intent leads, right?
Yeah.
If ChatGPT is telling you something, you generally don't ignore, right? So
Yeah.
they are extremely high intent leads, right? And then of course, we have referrals. Referrals become really important for us, right? Because again, really warm leads. right?
Mhm.
They understand that this is the problem that we were facing. The same problem is something that my friend is facing at another company, right? So we
Mhm.
are actually able to also give them case studies or success stories, right, which helps us build that case for us for helping them
Nice.
do that.
Awesome. And so do you have implemented within OneMetric essentially the same system that you would implement with one of your clients?
Definitely. In
Yeah.
fact, when they come in and when they ask us to demo HubSpot to them, if they are an IT service, right, or if they are a consultancy, we just show our platform, right, because it's
Nice.
implemented in such a way, right. We have been using HubSpot ourselves for over 4 years, right.
Mhm.
The way we have set it up, right. Any good consultancy would set it up for them, right, because you know I look at both the sales and the marketing function, right. Being in partnerships, I have to see both of the functions. In fact, the post sales as well, right? The
Yeah.
way that we have configured it, anybody who comes into our systems, right, they can see that data that they want to see for themselves, as well as if that data affects them, which is coming from another team, right? They'll be able to see that data within HubSpot, right? They'll be able to make sense of what is happening, right? A salesperson would be able to see how many leads were being given to them, how
Mhm.
many were actually retained, right? What is the retention um, rate, right, for all of the leads that I closed. Right. So it's a cross-functional, setup that we have done on our HubSpot as well.
Awesome. That's I mean, the phrase that comes to mind is drinking your own Kool-Aid or something along those, but I imagine that's really helpful from a product development standpoint too, seeing, "Oh, well, now we have this question that we can't answer. We should probably have a feature in order to do that, or this is a problem that we should solve as well."
True, true.
Yeah.
In fact, like we are one of the best customers of HubSpot as well, because
Mhm.
like they come in with so many updates, it just becomes, it's almost impossible for us to keep track of that. But then we
Mhm.
have a team that's, looking at those updates, right? Because, the sooner that we implement it for us, the sooner that we see a success out of it, the sooner that
Mhm.
we can actually implement it for another person, right? And that is how we did with AI, right? We are using HubSpot's AI agents for ourselves internally. And that is how, we have found a lot of success, right? Implementing it for other customers, right? And
Nice.
we have seen them scale and, make their processes more efficient.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Um, well, Ankit, why don't we call that the final data point for this episode? If people want to learn more about you and OneMetric, information will actually be in the show notes. Thank you for joining us on Data Planet. Take what helps, test boldly, and keep going. See you next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys. Bye bye.